The forerunner of the TV picture tube, the cathode ray tube, was invented in the late 1800s. This allowed images to be generated as electric current.
To demonstrate a Crookes tube, a cathode ray tube, we need a high voltage power source, such as this one. We need the Crookes tube, which has a metal cathode, a metal anode, a screen that has been coated with a phosphorescent material that gives off light when struck by electrons, and a bar magnet. As we turn on the screen, we notice that electrons are emitted from the cathode, and as they strike the fluorescent screen, we're able to see the cathode ray, this stream of electrons illuminated. We can use a magnet to show the deflection of that stream.
Here we can see the electrons being deflected by the magnet. The cathode ray moves upward. If we reverse the magnet, we would predict that the beam would be deflected in the opposite direction. And we observe that the beam is deflected downward.
In the 1880s, following the invention of the cathode ray tube, German inventor Paul Nipkow developed the scanning disc, a large flat metal disc with a series of small perforations organized in a spiral pattern used to store data. Nipkow's disc served as the foundation for experiments regarding the transmission of images for many years. In 1927, Vladimir Zworykin and Philo Farnsworth developed the iconoscope, the first TV camera tube that converted light rays into electrical signals. By breaking down and converting these signals into radio waves, transmitting them through the air, and reconstructing them in a receiver set, inventors made television a possibility by 1923. This method was also used to transmit the first TV picture in 1927. In 1930, Farnsworth patented the first electronic television. RCA, the world leader in broadcasting technology at the time, challenged Farnsworth in a major patent battle. After its defeat, RCA had to negotiate to use Farnsworth's patents. He later licensed these patents to RCA and AT&T for use in the commercial development of television. In 1934, Farnsworth first publicly demonstrated the power of television at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, 5 years before RCA's public demo at the 1939 World Fair. In the 1940s, the FCC began licensing radio channels for television to specific areas to make sure there was no interference. However, by 1948, the FCC had issued nearly 100 television licenses, and due to a growing concern about there only being a finite number of channels and with frequency interference issues, the FCC declared a freeze on new licenses from 1948 to 1952. In 1952, the FCC approved the experimental CBS system. However, its signal could not be received by black and white television sets. In 1954, RCA's color television system, which did receive black and white images, overcame CBS's system and became the official standard in color television broadcasting. The mid-1950s saw the rise in popularity of the TV game show. At one point, television game shows had the #1 and #2 most watched program on TV. However, this all changed following the admission that the shows were rigged by the sponsoring companies. The public's outrage at this forever changed the face of television show production and sponsorship. In 1960, television changed the face of United States politics forever. The event that did this was the first televised presidential debate, which had Richard Nixon squaring off against the young and good-looking John F. Kennedy. After the debates, the majority of radio listeners reported that Nixon had won the debate, while the majority of television viewers stated that Kennedy had dominated the debate. This event forever changed U.S. politics.
Bob Fleming, ABC News. The first question to Senator Kennedy from Mr. Fleming. Senator, the Vice President in his campaign has said that you are naive and at times immature. He has raised the question of leadership. On this issue, why do you think people should vote for you rather than the Vice President?
Well, the Vice President and I came to the Congress together. 1946, we both served in the Labor Committee. I've been there now for 14 years, the same period of time that he has, so that our experience in government is comparable. Secondly, I think the question is, what are the programs that we advocate? What is the party record that we lead?
The late 1950s to the 70s were considered by many historians as the network era. Except for British and American dramas on PBS, this time was marked by the dominance of CBS, NBC, and ABC dictating virtually every trend in primetime programming. During this period, the networks collectively accounted for more than 95% of all primetime television viewing. Accounting for major moves from broadcasting, cable's availability was on the rise, and in 1975, HBO became available throughout the country, offering such events as the Thrilla in Manila, a heavyweight boxing match between Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, which was televised via satellite from the Philippines. As the rate of cable proliferation went up, the television networks for the first time since their induction had a competitor. In 1975, following the advent of cable, another major opponent to broadcasting was introduced, the VCR, which allowed the recording of television programs to be watched later at the consumer's leisure, freeing them from the network's time constraints and scheduling. In 1976, Ted Turner uplinked the signal from his Atlanta independent station to a satellite, which allowed both cable and broadcast stations to access it, initially free of charge. As Turner expanded his station to include things such as CNN and the MGM film library, he began to charge. He was at the forefront of a growing industry that eventually penetrated about 70% of households by the early 2000s. Syndication, which emerged in the 1970s, involves the sale of already aired or made-for-syndication television shows to local networks. For the networks, this is cheaper than producing a show for a given time slot, and for the parent company, they get to make more money off of an already finished show. Popular syndicated TV shows include Wheel of Fortune, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and The Simpsons. In 1999, ABC introduced Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, a game show similar to the ones of the game show scandal era. This show was ranked number 1 in the 1999-2000 television season, thus heralding in the restoration of the game show once again as legitimate television. In 2005, despite much controversy and debate, the FCC decided that by 2009 they will no longer broadcast analog signals, and instead will only broadcast digital signals. To prevent general pandemonium over this, they offered vouchers for converter boxes to retrofit outdated televisions to receive the new medium